before you today at Old Creek, a place that many of us hold dear, to dedicate this bench in loving memory of Barbara Berg. Before I get started with my remarks, I'd like to introduce Kara, who works at Old Creek, and she has a few things to say about the donations and how they were used.
So I'm Kara. I'm one of the naturalists here. Oh, sorry. I'm one of the naturalists here. I should have talked louder. So some of the donations, we're very appreciative of it. They were used for to buy these. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. These little spring weights. So they're used to weigh fish, and I'll get into why we have those. And then some nets, and then this little tank over here. As you can see, there's a bluegill in there, and it is for quarantining. So it can be put out in the main fish tank for educational purpose and for the visitor center. So what we do is environmental education is very, very important, clearly. And so the weights and the nets were specifically for our shock boat and for the pontoon. So we take groups out for like totes. So there's teachers on the estuary, there's the OCDN and environmental education things. So we'll go out and do the shock fishing, and so that net will allow us to take more people out. They'll be able to net the fish, and then the little spring weights will help us weigh the fish and then document how much they weigh. You clip them on their little lip, and then you lift them and you weigh them. So we'll be able to really use that. They've already used them last week so far. So
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Barbara joined the board in 2006 as our treasurer and served in that capacity for 10 years. She was a dedicated advocate of Old Creek. As a trustee, Barbara contributed many volunteer hours into protecting, preserving, and promoting this unique estuarine research reserve. Her commitment was truly remarkable. Barbara understood the delicate balance of nature here, the importance of education, and the critical role this preserve plays in our community, and for the wider environment also. Even after she left the board, she continued to support the events that we held here at Old Creek. She coordinated refreshments for the brown bag lunch, organizing cookies to be made by one of her neighbors, and she volunteered with us at many community events. Some of the events are up here in the pictures. If you get a chance, I think take a look at those, please.
And I'm looking at them.
She believed in the mission of the Friends of Old Creek, and her dedication was very much appreciated. The bench sitting on the front porch is more than just a place to rest. It's a symbol, a testament to a life well lived, and a legacy that continues to inspire. It invites visitors to pause, reflect, and appreciate the serene environment that Barbara worked so hard to safeguard. When you sit here, you may feel the gentle breeze, hear the rustle of the leaves, and remember the profound impact Barbara had on this special place. We are all beneficiaries of Barbara's friends and family. The bench serves as a perpetual reminder of her dedication. I invite any of the family members to say a few words. We'll be doing this after we go out and look at the bench. And now if any of the guests would like to say something, I'm going to call on Rosie first. Elaine Waterfield, our past president, wrote something because she couldn't be here. You want to read that from over there?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rosemary Kovacs. I'm the vice president of the Friends. And I knew Barbara, not as long as other people. And she gave me her talking, or her singing bird clock. So I have
that's
right. Elaine Waterfield was a member of the board and
past president.
She says, Barbara was someone you remembered when you first met her. She had such a broad smile and welcoming facial expression. It was like her hand was reaching out to you even when she was just smiling. She could always be counted on to help you with any project. Working with her was always interesting and became fun. I felt like any project that we worked on would not only be successful and beneficial, but would be personally enhancing. She was smart, kind, enthusiastic, inventive, generous, and helpful. The world would be so much better off if there were more people like her in it. I miss her. Elaine Waterfield.
Yeah, Mark DeLong has something to read from Rich Perilla. He has a gift for that. You wanna come up here, Mark?
Yeah, I'll come up there, if I can get up there.
Okay.
I'm reading a tribute from Rich Perella. And Rich can't be here because he's got a cold and he's got medical issues. So he asked me to read what he wrote. I knew Barbara just occasionally, but Rich was really a good friend. And Barbara meant a lot to him. So here's what he has put together. Many years back on a cloudy, cool March day, I walked into the local gym and took a place on one of the exercise machines. Across from me, on the other machine, sat a woman of some age, with white hair and a look of tenacity in her smile. She acknowledged me and asked if I had permission to use that space. That question was followed by a very warm smile and the words, "Welcome, friend." I had my first encounter with Barbara Berg, and thus began a long and great relationship with Mrs. Barbara Berg. Over the next several weeks, I came to know this woman who preferred to be called Barbara, not Barb. Little did I know that over the next several weeks and months, Barbara, myself, and my spouse, Sally, would all become the best of friends. Through the years, Barbara pulled me into parts of her world, such as Old Woman Creek. She was very passionate about the environment and had zero fear about letting that fact be known. She was a true warrior for all of nature and the pale blue dot that we all live upon. She was one of the most well-read people I know. Daily, she went through all the major newspapers, page by page. And daily, at the gym, Barbara would show up and hand me what became known as my homework. She would hand me a grocery sack full of clippings about politics, gardening, and cooking. I would then take those home to share with my Sally. Usually within a day or two, there would be a short oral exam, Barbara asking me if I had opinion about the articles. Her way of making me accountable. She was the treasurer for Friends of Old Woman Creek and had somehow gotten me involved in the research center as a board member. There I made many great friends and enjoyed, along with my pal Barbara, more than a decade of volunteering. She and I worked many events together and simply enjoyed each other's company. She was a good person. During the COVID period, our little gym group known as the Coffee Club continued, and we met at places such as the Huron Parks, where we could meet and have coffee and still keep our respective distance to stay healthy. During this time, my Sally had become ill and mostly homebound. When the gym closed due to COVID, Barb showed up on my driveway daily about 11 a.m., where she would honk the horn and toss a sack out of the window for me to gather my homework. When driving became an issue, she then simply stopped on the road, blew the horn, and tossed her new sack into the yard for me to fetch. Her message and consistency gave great joy to my wife, who was unable to go for herself. They shared many traits. Barbara never lingered with her words. She was sharp as a tack and direct. She said what she meant, and she said it directly, but with compassion. This lady was extremely intelligent, empathetic, wise, and loving of her family, which she spoke about often. I was privileged to have known her. She is missed. She left this world a much better place. She loved her natural knickknacks, bonsai tree, and all sorts of quirky little things she had gathered on life's journey. She spoke often of going to my reward. I have no doubt that her spirit is somewhere in the heavens, organizing and arranging for the good of all. Still delivering some homework. An educator to the end. Rest in peace, my friend, Rich Corella.
Thank you so much for bringing that to us. Now you have something
Well,
you'd like to say.
I paint, this is such a beautiful spot that I've come here often to paint. So this is a pastel painting that was done across the street where we have the boat launch. It was done on site a couple years ago. And so it is a gift to your family, to the family. I wish I had 25 of them. How you're gonna divide it up? But this is one way of appreciation for all of you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll pick up yours.
Would anybody else from the neighborhood like to say something?
I'm waving at
Sue?
Mark.
I guess
Just sit down.
Sue Cloak has been a long-time board member and a friend of Barbara Berg's, and she managed our gift shop when we had a whole room for a gift shop. And anyhow.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that Barbara came on board in 2006. That helps my timeline a little bit, because I was not quite sure when she became treasurer. When Paul's email came in January, I was in North Carolina, and I gasped, and my family thought something was wrong with me, and it was. But my quirky brain immediately started to scroll through pictures, and Karen was the recipient of, I don't know how many, too many maybe, I don't know. There were pictures from 20 years of being working with Bob. And then subsequently, I started to write down anecdotal memories that became chapters, and I don't know how long, but so the family has in that form a lot of my memories. What I jotted down to share here today is my journey with Barbara regarding Old Woman Creek. I was volunteering here with my daughter while she was in high school before she went on to study environmental studies. And her freshman year was 2005 when I was volunteering solo. And the idea of maybe taking the gift cart from a literal gift shop from a literal cart into something bigger was raised. And having just retired from specialty retailing, still with the engine running, I'd be willing to help. And so that was on the condition that my friend Margaret would help also, because she had worked in our business. So it's a logical progression that when that was approved to go forward in the fall of 2005, we geared up in 2006 and had a natural working relationship with the treasurer, who happened to be Barbara Berg. So that's how our connection with her began. Her home on Portland was very near Key Bank, where the banking was done. So, so it was a common thing to make the deposit for the shop and then drop off a copy of the deposit slip. And Barbara was always, come on in and chat, and not just hand it at the door. So that's how our connections evolved from only as a professional to being friends, literal a friendship. Since the name is also on benches out there, I'd be remiss not to mention Barbara's dear friend Dorothy Kuntz, who was a member perhaps before Barbara was. And Barbara was a tenacious force to be reckoned with too. I mean, stay away when the two of them were together. Yeah, they were. And I was in a grocery store, I don't know which one now, and encountered Barbara, and then she said, "Oh, there's Dorothy. Here, you have to meet Dorothy." And so I got a sales pitch on the Audubon Society as well as the Friends of Wood Creek. So their legacies continued together, in other words. So I'm dressed as we did in the early years of the Nature Gift Shop. Once we had the t-shirts, because I was cheap but also wanted to be uniquely different, I used our leftover letterheads from the paper from our Wildwood stationery and made name tags like this for each of the people. With Pat Krebs' help, we got the friends, the pins, and they've been popular. So I like, this is the way we would dress, or I would dress if I was in the gift shop or on the road. So going back on a personal level, Barbara liked cats.
Yeah.
And our daughter had one that I became caregiver for, and when I went to visit Laura at college, Barbara offered to have Gracie come visit, and they created quite a bond. Whenever help was needed, either that way in a personal way or with, as Sandy said, events, Barbara was among the first to volunteer. And in 2011, this visitor center was closed for an entire year for renovations. And so that doesn't determine people who want to do retailing. And we saw the shop as an opportunity to do outreach as well. So the whole year of 2021, we found events to go off-site and take
2011.
2011, to take the gift shop on the road. And so Barbara was always right there. If she needed her walker or rollator, didn't matter, she was there. And a credit to Old Woman Creek and a lot of fun to be with. I didn't have time to look up the year, but one year Barbara and I represented the Friends at the annual NARA conference. That's the National Estuarine Research Association, where all the friends and foundations meet, as well as the professionals. It was held in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and we had a grand time driving there, being there. The grounds were quite, I had a lot of trails, and she had no problem using one of those battery-powered wheel devices. I think I still have pictures of her backing it into the elevator and waving it. She made a good time wherever we were. In 2016 or around there, due to a need for the room as an office, the nature shop was downsized from a large space to a credenza in the lobby. That same year, 2016, my friend Marv, who's been helping a lot, and her husband moved to Parkview from their home in Huron. 2 years later, Barbara moved to Parkview. And having already worked together with the Nature Shop, Barbara and Margaret formed a buddy relationship within the Parkview community that was just wonderful. And that did not deter them from continuing to nurture the birds and the bees, because they took on gardening over there.
That's right.
In a big way. And Barbara had quite the arboretum inside her home of indoor plants and in season outside on the deck as well, and I don't know, bird feeders galore. You could always find hers from outside. You could find her deck because of all that on there. In 2019, Barbara and Margaret's sister from Chicago, and I all drove to visit the second freshwater estuary, the one in Superior, Wisconsin. And we elected to take the route up the east shore of Lake Michigan to not Leamington, to get the ferry that goes across, from Michigan to Wisconsin. And it was a clear night with a full moon, and the ferry goes in that direction right after sunset, or right as the sun is setting, and gets in at 12:30, just after midnight. So it was a very, very memorable start to our travels up there. And that whole, I won't go into the detail, we had a good time up in Wisconsin and Duluth, Minnesota, where Marg and I had a college classmate who joined us as well and treated us. Summarizing, Barbara had a lot of gifts, as have already been listed, but including coping with the unexpected. She overcame obstacles to accomplish what she wanted to do, whether it was following hip surgery. She had a foot drop problem that it was even her right foot for driving, but she managed to come up with ways to cope and keep doing what she wanted to do. She would adapt, adjust, and accommodate as needed. Her support of Margaret and me helped make possible the evolution of the nature shop from that little tea cart to the room, and then downsizing it into the closet. And, or not in the closet, into the credenza, I'm sorry. It did start out in a closet. Into a credenza, and now under Rosie's management, it has become what you see today, which is a professional display case. The credenza was from the hospice thrift shop, but this was a professional, and Rosie has the capacity that none of the three of us did to handle credit cards and PayPal and all that fancy stuff that Barbara didn't want to get involved in, and nor did I. So it continues to support and educate about Old Woman Creek. We had many good times, and what I learned from Barbara over the years about life, she was an educator in so many ways. Will stay in my heart forever. I have this greeting card that just somehow made me think of Barbara. Teaching a child not to step on a caterpillar is as useful for the child as it is for the caterpillar.
That's awesome.
So, and I just came across these. They must have been not good enough to use for some reason, but I'd never throw anything away. This is a verse about yesterday's children, and that they would have been a bookmark that we handed out to acknowledge volunteers. But anyway, there's one for each of you. And I guess that's. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Mark, this is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really well done. All right, let's go on and take a look at the bench. And then the family would like everybody to come back in. They've got a few words they'd like to say, and then it's time for refreshments.
Are we still rolling?
Yeah. I have to get everything. I'll just follow Paul.
I'm gonna try to avoid saying super toxic for next time.
Oh my God. Fell down. The bowl fell down, but that's all right. The bowl was supposed to be up here. There, now you can take a picture of the bowl on the bench. Give me my camera. copies. After everybody gets out here. Let's pull that. Is everybody else still coming? I think they'll be here in just a minute. Yeah, okay.
It's a bit of a calf herding thing.
We're gonna unveil it first. Maybe we're gonna unveil it first. We're gonna open it and take a picture of it.
Oh my goodness, I've never seen such a big box.
We used that when we dedicated our bench that we, friends bought on our 35th anniversary of the home retreat. Is everybody here now? Okay.
I'm fine, roll call.
All right, I'm gonna read a few words and then we'll wait on those. On behalf of the Friends of Oldman Creek and on behalf of the entire community that benefits from this reserve, we extend our deepest gratitude to Barbara's family and friends. May this bench offer comfort and a lasting tribute to a truly remarkable individual. Thank you. Would your two daughters like to sit down?
Oh, sure. Please. Okay.
You gotta break it up.
In loving memory of Barbara Berg, May 2nd, 1934 to January 7th, 2024. She was a lover of birds and a rare bird herself. Okay, yes. Just get the two daughters.
You want to have that?
Million feet of us. Yes, come back over here.
I think we have a photo crash. You want to come up? Sure. Okay, Square.
Let them get a few and then you can go.
Okay.
For the picture. Alright guys, Andy.
If you're a good photographer, that's smile. Their stone face.
Oh, there we go. We got a smile.
For the family like to get around.
Alright, you wanna sit?
We're gonna go to run it in.
Wait, guess who's gonna go?
We could move the bench out a little bit so if the family can get behind it.
Oh, you want to sit on this one?
So you don't just stand up.
Oh, is it not?
Oh, she's in that one. That's nice of you. So we can see. This is where they wrote.
That's a gorgeous
A little further, you're still in the trees.
Yeah, you can sit on that.
I mean, you know, tons of opportunities.
Which one do you want to sit on?
You got it.
Here?
Like the bench so much,
Oh, oh.
Yes, you look.
I like how it's inset into.
That's really good.
Yeah, this one's really tall.
Oh, you can leave it.
I thought we were getting trying to get. Everybody?
I'm gonna put this right here.
Grandkids?
Gather around. I got a wide angle.
I was wondering how you were gonna handle it.
Amber, you good over there?
Yeah, we're good. Sure you don't want to go on the bench next to them? Hi. Hello. Which pepper?
In, did? Okay, in.
You come to pepper?
Yeah, that's.
Maybe
uh,
Amber, do you want to sit on the bench?
Everybody's smiling like they're having fun.
You want to sit and hold your hands in here?
All right, this way.
Okay, look at Rosemary.
There you go.
And I'll email these pictures to
Lovely.
Karen.
All right.
Okay, let's go in and
Cool off.
Cool off.
I have an idea. Back in the day, you don't see too much.
Yes, you would. Yes, you would love it.
Thank you.
I have it in my pocket. Uncle Derek's gonna say a few things about Granny. And then we're gonna have a fresh We're gonna let them go first today, sorry. Uncle Derek's gonna talk for a little bit, and then we're gonna do some juice and stuff. You're doing a very good job letting people talk about Granny. And you too, Dusty. Alright, here, come on, we're gonna pick out a sticker. You're doing so good. So, Uncle Derek's gonna talk a little bit, okay? So we're gonna be quiet for a little longer here. Name you picked up a rainbow? You're making it.
I'm having a rainbow.
Yeah, here's your rainbow. You wanna pick one? No, you're both doing a good job. It's not about being better, it's being supportive. Okay, good.
Can I have some?
You can have one more after Uncle Derek talks, okay?
Okay. Don't stack it like that.
Yeah, it's up. You don't have socks on.
Regularly, so oh, please do. Thank you. Oh, sure, I'll send them all to you. Yes, he can give you some. Yes, that's perfect. He'll be right on it. Thank you.
That's a good looking wooden walking
Oh, here's Sue.
Count heads, huh?
Well, welcome to part two. I'm Paul Fine, I'm Barbara's son-in-law, as many of you know. On behalf of the Fines and the Yokoyokas, we want to thank everyone very sincerely for arranging this and coming here today. We are delighted that we can celebrate Barbara's long and meaningful life in a community that meant so much to her. And it's been great to listen to what everyone had to say. Although, I will admit, a little bit rough for my self-esteem because I realized that Barbara never drove up to Michigan and threw a bag of homework onto mine. So, I guess I didn't have favored status. Karen and Frida have asked Barbara's oldest grandchild, Derek, standing over in the corner, to share some thoughts and reflections with you. Before I call him up, I'd like to take just a minute and read for you a poem that I wrote in the days immediately after Barbara died. One that touches on some of the themes that Derek will be exploring more thoroughly and with greater eloquence. Barbara, dear Barbara, you were to the end our wonderful Grammy, a fabulous friend. Retaining yourself both in spirit and mind, though your health had betrayed you and strength had declined. Your perspective on life, even views on mortality, proved you a slave act with stout practicality. Sensible outlooks and clever solutions, the whimsy of $2 bill distributions. You had talent for giving, not mere generosity, choosing each gift with unique virtuosity. Presents for birthdays, the holiday season, and some not for any particular reason. We wanted more time, but though that is denied us, I promise you this, you will live on inside us. Wow.
gonna be hard to top all that.
You don't have.
So thanks everyone for being here, and I'm now aware that I'm in the dreaded position of being between you and snacks. I'll apologize in advance. As you guys know, there was a lot to say about Grammy. This is a little on the longer end, so stretch, like stand up and around a little bit, buckle up, and we'll have fun through this together. So, thanks everybody. Thanks Dad, and thanks to everyone who came today. Thanks to Sandy Wright and the team here as well. We've been working towards this, I think, for the last 18 months as a family, and I'm so glad that we have this larger moment than I was expecting, actually, in time together today to unplug from our daily concerns and be present in remembrance. We put a lot of thought into what to put on the bench's plaque, but in the end, we settled for something short and sweet, which we thought would fit Grammy. So if you looked closely a moment ago, you might have seen an inscription that reads, "She was a lover of birds and a rare bird herself." As most of you likely know, Barbara, who my siblings, cousin, and I called Grammy, had an extensive collection of bird and field guides. As a kid, I was initially hooked by the bright pictures, but over time I came to appreciate them as a budding bird watcher myself, eagerly whipping up the books for reference whenever Grammy and I saw a new bird together along one of our adventures. I've done a pretty thorough audit at this point of the Audubon Field Guide to North American Birds, and for whatever reason, the rare bird Grammy entry seems to be missing. I'm sure they're gonna fix this in short order, but in the meantime, I wanted to spend some time today telling you all about the life and migratory patterns of this particular rare bird that was so dear to us. Grammy was from a Czech family, and we'd sometimes joke growing up about her stereotypically Central European mannerisms. Yes, she did love the accordion, and yes, she did call the end of a slice of bread the patka, but it was her personality too. She could be a little taciturn, and showing emotion wasn't always her strong suit. The flip side of that, though, was that she refused to be bowed by absolutely anything that came her way. She was the youngest of 4 children, and the toughness and tenacity she honed in her childhood shaped the rest of her life. Grammy, as you've heard already from some other folks, didn't have the easiest go of it. When she was a little girl, a sudden high fever left her deaf in 1 year. She raised my aunt and my mom by herself during a time in which being a single mother was heavily stigmatized. Later on, she battled through a bout of cancer that permanently changed her life and a hip operation that left her with a dropped foot. Facing all those obstacles could easily have made her or anybody reasonably bitter, but if she was, I certainly never saw it. Grammy learned to adapt and then just kept living life on her terms. She took her hearing loss in stride, joking frequently about my good ear, and patiently reminding us to move to the other side of the table if we had something particularly important to tell her. Even on the day that she passed away, her last words to her care team were something to the effect of, "I'm sorry about all the trouble." I'm going to be a parent for the first time later this year, and as so many expectant parents do, I've been thinking about the behaviors I want to model for my child once they come into the world. I'm fortunate to have my parents as incredible examples, but I've also thought a lot about how to emulate Grammy, particularly her selflessness. Some birds will partially digest food for their chicks to make it easier for them to eat. Well, Grammy didn't go quite that far, at least that I'm aware of. For her 2 daughters, she did just about everything else. After signing up for what she thought was a standard co-parenting arrangement, her husband's alcoholism and the divorce it necessitated pressed Grammy into single parenthood while her girls were still in elementary school. From that point forward, she raised my mom and my aunt on a school teacher's salary without much family support. When asked about how she made this work, she'd always just shrug her shoulders and reply, "I never thought about it. I just did what I had to do." As my mom put it recently, if ever there was somebody who embodied the phrase, "do the next right thing," it was surely my mother. Doing the next right thing took many forms for Grammy. For her girls, it meant finding ways to give them the experiences Grammy wanted them to have while working on a shoestring budget. When the girls wanted to learn instruments, Grammy found out that you could get high-quality lessons from Northwestern students for way less. When the family wanted to see a show in Chicago, Grammy hacked her way around it by having the girls act as ushers. Instead of flying to vacation destinations, they would drive all the way out to Maine for a family getaway. Over the summer, when Grammy was mostly off work, they'd go to the local beaches together as a family and soak up some Evanston sun. Grammy found a million little ways to make childhood enriching for her girls, even when it required a little creativity. And for Grammy, family was never strictly a biological term either. She was a community builder. Whether it was the Unitarian Church in Evanston, the League of Women Voters, her bonsai club, or right here at the Friends of Old Woman Creek organization, Grammy found ways to plug into the causes that she cared about, and in typical Grammy fashion, she often became a cornerstone of those groups once she joined, as you've all heard a lot about today. In Evanston, she frequently took new members of the Unitarian Church under her wing, helping them acclimate to the city, and she would open up her home to those in need. Although she was never wealthy or overtly ideological, she felt a strong duty to give both her time and money to make the world a better place. After the rare bird had ushered her children from the nest, she followed the example of countless birds before her and migrated back to her ancestral home, returning to Ohio, albeit a different color. She settled in Huron in a corner house on 327 Portland Drive under the shade of an ancient old tree. And that is where my memory first started. As you get older, I found that the less differentiated parts of your childhood tend to fade into the recesses of your memory. Entire school years or summers boiling down to just a few flashbulb moments. One of the things that struck me as I was putting together my remarks today is that while that's true for most of my life, it's not true for my time with Grammy. I wrote, as my family saw, pages and pages of notes for this, filled with specific memories of things that happened decades ago. And that's far from random. Grammy cared a lot about giving each of us special experiences. Each time visiting her was somehow both comfortingly familiar and unique at the same time. For most of my childhood, and that of my siblings as well, the highlight of my year was Grammy Week. So sometime between June and September, my siblings and I would each get an individual week with Grammy. We'd pack our swimsuits and our binoculars, and we'd head south down US 23 to conduct the prisoner swap, which is a covert meeting at the Wendy's in Maumee off exit 6, where our parents would hand us over. From there, we drove with Grammy to Huron for whatever adventures she had in store. She took a lot of time to get to know us individually, and she planned unique trips around our specific interests. Grammy and I saw plays in Oberlin, and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, but we also journeyed out of the state, taking road trips to Falling Water in Pennsylvania to see a bunch of Frank Lloyd Wright stuff, and then the College Football Hall of Fame in South Bend, which I can promise you she had absolutely zero interest in, but did for me anyway. One year when I was older, we rented Shawshank Redemption from the local video store, watched it together on her couch, and then traveled down to Mansfield to see the old Ohio State Reformatory where the movie was filmed. Grammy declined to be locked in a cell when we were doing the tour, but she made sure that I went in there for a second and then took a picture of me. I'm not sure if that made me Tim Robbins or Morgan Freeman, but either way, it was a unique trip that typified Grammy's eye for thoughtful planning. While the road trips were fun, Grammy also made sure that there was plenty to do in Huron as well, both at her house and around the town. Grammy had a beautiful rope swing that any of you who ever visited her house would have seen that hung 20 feet above the ground from a high bough in that tree out in front. And we'd spend our summers bouncing ourselves off the tree and fighting over who got to use the swing, which was the only problem with it. She bought bikes for us to ride around the city. She helped teach us how to swim, both in her neighbor's pool and also at Nickel Plate Beach, which we went to a lot. Through Grammy, we came to love Huron, not just because she lived there, but also because of the unique character of the city. The summer shows at the Boat Basin, soft serve ice cream at the Pied Piper, musicals at the Huron Playhouse, and as some of us were reminiscing about earlier, and even seemingly blander places like Discount Drug Mart, which has a fond place in my heart, where we load up on supplies at the start of our weeks together. In the evenings, we go down to the water and watch the big boats come in while the ConAgra building, and we'd sit at the kitchen table and play games. Grammy was partial to Mexican train, but she played a mean grain of Scrabble as well. Those summers were also formative moments for me as I grew up. I learned how to safely climb a ladder so I could watch the skylights on Grammy's roof. I accrued most of the hours needed to satisfy my driver's ed requirements, to the point where the mechanical click of a turn signal when I put on the turn signal still makes me think about Grammy's Oldsmobile. I learned how to drive with just one hand on the steering wheel because Grammy insisted that I needed sometime in the future to be able to hold a girl's hand and drive. Unfortunately, due to my lack of social skills, this skill did not become relevant until much later in my life. But Grammy, as always, was playing the long game. I learned how to find the ripest tomatoes to pick and the best ears of corn at the farmer's market. And, of course, I learned how to appreciate nature as well. Grammy was passionate about conservation, and we were fortunate that she lived in an area rich in natural resources. In addition to her philanthropic activities, Grammy just loved being in nature, and as a result, so did we. I learned to bird with Grammy at places like McGee Marsh and Old Woman Creek, staring through my binoculars as Grammy explained how to adjust them so I could see whatever bird we were trying to find. I acquired Grammy's joking hatred of squirrels, shaking my fist at them while she watched them raid her bird feeders that were set up with these incredible squirrel traps that were nonetheless not a huge obstacle. We would go on nature walks together, strolling through the dirt trails and boardwalks of local preserves. One of my favorite moments with her was a snowy walk that we did together along the pond by the Mathai Botanical Gardens, which is up by my parents' house in Ann Arbor. If I close my eyes, I can still hear the soft crunch of our boots on the freshly fallen snow as we walked along the water. Two people in sync with nature in a way that's just increasingly rare today. As Grammy got older, her world began to gradually shrink, but even as her operating system ran at slightly lower fidelity, she never lost the essence of who she was. More than anyone I've ever met, Grammy was simultaneously fiercely independent and compulsively social. She needed her space, but she needed community too. For years, Grammy would visit us during the holidays and stay at my parents' house. At a certain point, the chaos of 3 kids became a little much for her, and she decided to decamp to the nearby Red Roof Inn, where she would retreat for a little peace and quiet at the end of the day of socializing. But before she left, she would always have the whole family over to the big boy that was next to the Red Roof Inn, and we would all eat there at the table together before we saw her off. This quintessentially Grammy combination of independence and togetherness applied to her living situation as well. Grammy was relentlessly pragmatic, and she moved out of her single-family home in Huron and into a nearby retirement community before anyone from our family would necessarily have suggested it. When she got there, though, she realized that things weren't lively enough for her liking, so she did what she always did. She put her head down and figured out how to make it better. Grammy quickly became the de facto social captain of her living community, organizing activities for the other seniors and encouraging everyone to be more active and participate in nature. When we came to visit on Christmas Day and we went through the front door for our annual holiday sing-along, I always felt like a bit of a celebrity by proxy. I was the grandson of the Barbara Berg, clearly the coolest person around in Parkview. During her later years, Grammy traveled and drove less, but she continued her prolific writing. Grammy developed and nurtured a large group of friends over the years, and she had long maintained a robust email correspondence and written correspondence with all of them, diligently getting updates and sharing her own. As she got older, she started writing to our family more as well. Every month or two, a letter would show up in my mailbox, and trust me when I say that in this age of spam and relentless advertisements, these were literally the only physical letters that I looked forward to receiving. Every letter contained precisely 3 things: a double-sided typed message, a clipping from the comic section of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, carefully tailored to the interest and sense of humor of the recipient, and of course, number 3, a $2 bill. All told, I ended up with enough $2 bills to buy Monticello, and even though I spent the last few years slowly depositing them in coffee shop tip jars, I still have a crisp stack of $2 bills in the nightstand beside my bed, which is what I've brought as my one show and tell item today. The letters were one part Grammy update, one part curated family newsletter. She'd always start with the latest in her life, regaling us with tales of Sandusky comings and goings, the latest initiative that she was leading in her retirement community or board member work, and any particularly interesting birds that she's seen recently, of course. The second part of the letter was always a family update, with sections devoted to what each daughter, in-law, grandkid, and great-grandkid eventually was up to. Even when she couldn't travel to see us, Grammy was really closely looped in on our lives. When my brother started dating his fiance, for example, Grammy had a picture of the two of them up on her wall within about a week, and then Jessa immediately showed up in the next family newsletter as well. Reading those letters always made me feel closer to both her and to my family members whom I saw less often. The day that Grammy passed away, my wife and I had come to the hospital to visit her. We were in the hall outside in her final moments, and as I sat beside her bed afterwards, holding her hand while nurses streamed in and out of the room, I was struck by 2 competing thoughts. This happened too soon, and it was also the right time. I've been hoping for years that Grammy would move closer to us, and when it finally happened and she moved to a beautiful community 10 minutes from my house, I had some retrospectively naive, boyish fantasies of rekindling some of our childhood adventures together. Maybe we tour the nearby botanic gardens, or watch the birds, or find a PBS mystery program to watch. But I think part of really loving somebody is knowing when it's time to let go. Grammy had slowed down a lot in the prior few years, and while her frequent jokes about going to my reward were somewhat tongue-in-cheek, they hinted at a deeper truth, which is that she'd lived a rich, full life, and she was, I think, ready to depart on her own terms. As much as I wasn't ready to say goodbye to one of the foundational pillars of my life, she was ready, and that's what counts. A year and a half later, I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to come together today to remember the wonderful woman she was, and I'm sure it would be deeply meaningful to her that we're doing it here, in this calm oasis that she loved so much. When I've walked past other memorial benches in the past, I've often wondered about the people behind the plaque, constructing stories in my head of the men and women they commemorated, and the fascinating lives that they must have lived. Fortunately, with Grammy, I don't have to wonder. I love the idea that some tangible representation of her will be anchored in nature here for decades to come, providing support for others. It's such a physical embodiment of her lived values. I think it's just the way she would have wanted it. But truthfully, as nice as it is, I don't need the bench to remember Grammy. I'll remember her every time I hear the Stars and Stripes Forever and the lyrics to Be Kind to Your Web-Footed Friends pop into my head. I'll remember her when my wife calls a mourning dove a pigeon, and I can say, actually. I'll remember her when I hear somebody whistling, and instantly picture myself walking down the stairs in the morning to find Grammy whistling while she cooked breakfast. I'll remember her when I see the yellowing, for better or for worse comment that she sent me and my wife that still has a place in honor in our fridge. I'll remember her when I take a walk along the lake and find a perfectly polished piece of beach glass. I'll remember her when I see the goofy seal portrait that hung on the wall of the Big Boy by Grammy's Red Roof Inn. I'll remember her when I pass a cornfield in the summer and try to quickly evaluate whether or not the corn is knee-high by the 4th of July. I'll remember her whenever I hear my dad play old show tunes by ear, and remember Grammy singing along, enthusiastic but slightly off-key. And I'll remember her when I drive past a Wendy's and briefly fooled myself into thinking that I get to kiss all my troubles goodbye for a week and go on a grand Ohio adventure. These are just a few of the indelible Grammy moments that I'll carry with me, and I know we collectively have hundreds more that we could recount. Even more than the bench that we've gathered here today to dedicate, those memories, I think, are her true legacy. I would keep going, but I'm worried I'd start repeating myself and thus contravene Grammy's most famous axiom, don't chew your cabbage twice. So with that in mind, I'll conclude by saying thank you all again very much for being here today to celebrate the life of our favorite rare bird. I hope you'll all return here in the future and spend a moment of quiet contemplation by the bench. But I also hope that you'll feel her presence in life's smaller moments, reminding you to be present, to cherish your families, and to communicate with nature. I know I will.
Well, I think it's time for some refreshments. And Kara said that if anybody wanted to see the snake, she would take it out.